Julia Create. Now in a previous episode, we made these using a fabric on our journal pages, which is fabulous, but it left us with quite a mess on the reverse side. So today we are going to see what we can do with the reverse side to make it all pretty and gorgeous. So without further ado, shall we just get started? So these pages do currently look quite a mess, let's face it, but they are actually amazing starting points. Quite often when we're faced with a blank page, we maybe don't know where to go, but the fact that there's already stuff on there, we've already got our starting point, and it's important, or at least I feel it's important, just to embrace the texture. Quite often when I do a journal page, the first thing I do is start adding texture. So that is exactly what I'm going to do here. Just to add a little bit of interest, I have put a few book pages down and I'm sticking them down with gel medium, and that is just as a starting point. Normally what I would do is kind of slosh paint around or put texture paste down, and part of that for me is a little bit of a warm-up. I never seem to know when I start a project what the end result will be. I just sort of start creating and it sort of occurs. It just happens naturally. I don't work to any form of plan. So this is sort of like my warm up, and it just sort of gets me going. Now, here you can see that I have pulled out stencils and white texture paste. And now you can see that it's on the page. For some reason, despite years and years of filming and doing this, I failed to record the part where I actually put the texture paste on the page. So I do apologise for that, but it is fairly simple. It's literally, if you can spread butter on toast, you can put texture paste on a page. So now we're at the point where we're adding gesso. So I started off with clear gesso because I don't want to lose the colour and things that I have. But also that paper would not take any form of mediums, the book paper. So it's good to layer a clear thing of gesso on. Then I come out with some white gesso and just blend the edges. For me, it just helps to work a little bit better. Now at this point, normally I would add extra colour on the background and bring out the texture, but I was really liking the soft sort of vintage look. So I went into my bit box and found these gorgeous alpacas that had been coloured again with these really sepia tones, and decided to build up a scene with these guys. We also have flowers from the Bumblebee collection and also from the Woodland Tot. So I literally have just pulled out a whole load of stuff. That's what I love about designing products. Because I hand draw them all, they do all sort of go together because they've got the same style. Now I'm using gel medium to stick these down, and this is because I really want to work with and embrace the fact that we have a lot of texture on there already with all the stitching detail and the loose threads. So I've grabbed some Sizzle and I'm just sort of tucking that underneath, and I wanted to be able to sort of lift my images. Extreme close up of me cutting that. Not quite sure why I was so, and you can admire my watch, but anyway, I think I was trying to show you sort of me tucking in behind the various bits and pieces. So we've got Sizzle and then we've got these sort of little grassy type things, and again it was me sort of wanting to just really celebrate the texture that we already have on the page. Once I've kind of got it how I like it and I've got all my bits and pieces put behind the images, I just secure them down by gluing down the edges. Now because it had a lovely gorgeous vintage sepia palette, I have gone with my Art Nouveau Kuretake Ganzi Tan because they do have a much softer colour palette than their original one, and I'm going for these sort of beiges and sepia browns. I did actually put the really pale cream on first, but you couldn't see that on camera, so we've kind of, you see it midpoint now, you just about see the texture paste coming through now as the paint's running around it. So just build up that just to sort of add a little bit of shadowing, make those images pop. I then decide to ground it a little bit by adding some green, but that looked quite bright in comparison to the rest of the page, which I wasn't overly fond of. So I then went back in with the original beige colour that we had been using and put it over that green just to knock it back a bit and desaturate it so it marked the rest of the piece. And then finally, I am just going to add a few extra touches and also just put shadowing around the llama that is sat in the front, or alpaca I should say, that is sat in the front, and so that we've got that sort of depth of field. On to page 2. Now, with this one, there was a lot of texture and threads right at the bottom of the page. So I decided to really sort of embrace that and thought that would make great grass and groundwork. So it would add a lot of texture to the foreground of the piece. So again, Bitbox to the rescue. We've got some of the fruit houses from the Fruitopolis collection. I have some bumblebees from the Bumblebuzz collection. I think I've got some little mice as well and some woodland tot elements, so it's all in there. And again, I'm just building a very fanciful, whimsical scene using all of these different elements. I do look a bit awkward in the way that I've done this. I'm not quite sure where my brain was as I was actually putting this together, but I seem to sort of be tucking things behind quite a lot. So I tend to do that. I just put like glue in the center and it allows me to sort of move behind an image and everything until I've got it all placed where I want it to be. Once I'm happy with the positioning, then I then sort of press down firmly so that it is stuck and stays where it's supposed to be. These little cloud stamps are great because they make kind of bushes and trees. So in we've got them on their side in the yellow to make little bushes. We've got them upright to make the trees behind the pear. And then we actually have them as traditional clouds. So it's great to be able to look into your images and see the different things that you have. So I'm adding a few little clouds at the top because it's me and I do love a cloud. So yeah, I think there's one final one that's just getting popped in behind there, and then a few little critters to add. We've got the little worm from the Pear Place, who's just gorgeous, and a bumblebee. Now, obviously this is a collab with the fantabulous Dawn, who did a great job of her stitching project in her journal, which is a Dawn and Julia Create journal, which she's working really hard to finish this year. I need to maybe do more pages in that said journal. I need to catch up. So please do pop across and see how the lovely Dawn approaches this. I know she will love it and she will do something amazing because she loves working with texture and layers. And I think this challenge really leans into that, the fact that we get to play with texture and make the most of it. So like the last page, I'm building up a little bit of shadowing. We have some green under the house just to ground it. And then I'm using a little bit of this soft pale blue. So even though this is much brighter page, I still use the same palette of Kuretake Ganzi Tambi paints. I think it still worked. You can build up the colour if you want to. Now I then had the idea that I would dry brush these threads and it would make them pop, and it didn't really work. It didn't actually really do anything. So in the end, what I started doing was just slapping loads of paint on. I added a few browns to make it look like there was a little bit of a path. And then I added lots of greens. And what I did was I put the paint on really, really thick because some of the threads were quite frankly working in the wrong direction to be grass. It was sort of ruining the aesthetic somewhat. So I just piled loads of this paint on really, really thick. And different shades of green. I've got a metallic there, I've got a forest green, we've got some browns, and then I heat it with a heat gun. Now I'm hoping this shows up. I think it does if you really concentrate. See there, it's just beginning to bubble. So you can see the paint bubbling, and I knew it would do that. If you force dry acrylic paint, it does bubble like that. Now normally in a painting that would be annoying, but I was wanting it for the texture, so it worked really well. Now we see them both side by side. I'm adding the finishing touches of souffle. I wonder if Dawn will use souffle. She does like it, and we're both very excited that it's back on the market. So I'm using rose quartz on the more sepia toned one. Again, I'm just sort of adding it in the grounding areas and a few little dashes of it in various places just to lift it. And then I've got, I think this is summer chameleon. It's a nice green one, and again I'm sort of putting it in the area that I had those grass and things, and knowing that when this dries again it will add to the texture and we'll have the sparkle, and hopefully this will create this textured foreground that I was going for and that I was aiming for. So yeah, I'm just going to put a little bit up the sides because I had sort of tried to make the grass look like it was growing behind the house as well, because that's what it would do in real life. It wouldn't just stop in a line before your house. So I'm just adding a little bit and a few little touches in the trees and on the leaves of the pears and things, just to add a little bit of overall sparkle. I just love souffle. And the magic of souffle is when it all dries. Look at that. It's so sparkly and luscious and lovely. So we see the bits of sparkle there, and then also it looks fantabulous on this one. We've got some nice sort of rose look, and it goes fabulously with the sepia tones. So that is the 2 pages for today. We've managed to change what were quite ugly looking pages into something gorgeous. If you do enjoy journaling, you might enjoy this video here, and don't forget to pop across and see Dawn.